I never thought I'd be the woman who had to choose between the family who raised me and the man I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I always believed those two worlds would eventually come together, the way they do in all the happy stories people tell themselves. But the night I hung up on my dad and blocked his number, I realized something terrifying. Sometimes love doesn't unite families. Sometimes it tears them apart. And the worst part? I still don't know if I made the right choice. It all started so normally, almost too perfectly, like one of those relationships people quietly envy but never say much about. I met him just over 2 years ago on an ordinary weekday that didn't seem important at the time. It was one of those dull English afternoons where the sky hangs low and everything feels slightly muted. I had stopped into a little cafe after work, more out of habit than anything else, and he was there, standing near the counter, waiting for his tea, looking like someone completely comfortable in his own skin. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't trying too hard. He didn't have that polished, overconfident way some men do when they want to be noticed. He was just steady, grounded. The sort of man who looked you in the eye when you spoke and actually listened, like your words mattered. I remember thinking how rare that felt. We started off slowly. Coffee turned into walks. Walks turned into late-night conversations where we talked about everything. Our childhoods, our fears, the kind of life we hope to have one day. We wandered through parks, down side streets, past rows of terraced houses and little corner shops, and with every conversation, I felt myself getting pulled in deeper. There was this calmness around him that I couldn't explain. Being with him didn't feel like chaos or butterflies. It felt like coming home, and that frightened me more than anything. Because when something feels that right, there's always this quiet voice in the back of your head whispering that it won't last. A few months into our relationship, that voice got louder. We were sitting in his flat one evening. It was raining outside, soft at first, then harder, tapping against the windows like it wanted to be let in. He'd been quieter than usual all night, not distant, just preoccupied. I could tell something was weighing on him. Finally, he looked at me, and I saw it. That hesitation, that fear. "I need to tell you something," he said. My stomach dropped instantly. It's funny how your body knows before your mind does. That phrase, "I need to tell you something," it almost never leads anywhere simple. I braced myself for anything. A secret relationship. A lie. Some hidden part of his life that would make me question everything. But what he said instead, I wasn't prepared for. He told me about his past, about how, when he was 16, his mum got ill. Really ill. The kind of illness that drains everything. Not just health, but money, stability, hope. The sort of thing that turns a home into a place of worry overnight. He was still just a boy, trying to hold things together, trying to be stronger than he should ever have had to be. And somewhere along the way, he made a choice. He got involved with people he shouldn't have. Started doing things he knew were wrong. Not because he wanted that life, but because he couldn't see another way. He said it started small, a favor here, a delivery there, little things that didn't seem as dangerous at first as they really were. But small choices, made in desperation, have a way of leading somewhere bigger and darker before you realize what's happening. He said he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. that he got swept up in something much bigger than him. That when everything came crashing down, he didn't give the names of the people above him because, in that world, being branded a snitch could cost you everything. So he took the fall. 6 years. 6 years of his life gone before he'd even really had a chance to become an adult. And while he was inside, his mum died. I still remember the way his voice broke when he said that. Not loudly, not dramatically, just this quiet fracture, like something inside him had never healed properly.
I should have been there, he said. I should have done something different.
I didn't know what to say. My mind was racing, trying to process everything at once. The man sitting in front of me, the one who held my hand gently, who smiled softly, who volunteered on weekends. He had lived a life I couldn't even imagine.
I should have been scared. I should have pulled away.
But I didn't. Because the person he was describing didn't feel like the person I knew. And I told him that. I told him his past didn't erase the man he had become. That people make mistakes, sometimes huge ones, but that didn't mean they were beyond redemption. I could see it in his eyes when I said that. That mixture of relief and disbelief, like he'd expected me to walk away the moment I heard the truth. But I stayed.
And from that moment on, something shifted between us.
Not in a bad way, in a deeper way. Like I'd been allowed to see the part of him he kept hidden from the rest of the world. Over time, I saw more of who he was now. He worked a regular job with a local property maintenance company. Nothing glamorous, but he took pride in it. Every time he fixed something, built something, helped someone, there was this quiet satisfaction in him, like he was rebuilding more than just walls and broken fittings. Every Saturday he volunteered at a local food bank. Not for attention, not for praise. Most people didn't even know. He just turned up week after week, helping serve meals, unpacking donations, talking to people others ignored. And every Sunday, he went to church. At first, I didn't go with him. Religion had never been a major part of my life. Christmas services, christenings, weddings, those sorts of things, yes. But faith as something regular, something lived? Not really. One day, he asked if I wanted to come along, not pushing, just inviting. So I went, and I watched him sit there, head slightly bowed, listening like it mattered, like it meant something real to him. And I realized this wasn't about appearances. It wasn't about trying to look respectable. This was how he grounded himself, how he stayed on the path he had fought so hard to get back to. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And that mattered more to me than anything. So when he proposed to me last weekend, I didn't hesitate. It was simple, romantic in that quiet, sincere way that was so completely him. No public scene, no grand performance. Just us, in a place that meant something to both of us, with a ring in his hand and hope in his eyes. And I said yes. I felt happy, genuinely, deeply happy, like everything in my life was finally aligning into something solid and real. I couldn't wait to tell my parents. That was my first mistake. At first, they were thrilled. My mum cried. My dad sounded proud. They asked questions, wanted details, talked about the wedding like it was already taking shape in their minds. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like I'd been right all along. But a few days later, everything changed. My phone rang. It was my dad, and the second I heard his voice, I knew something was wrong. It was colder, sharper, like whatever warmth had been there before had vanished completely. "I looked into him," he said. Those 4 words made my chest tighten instantly. He told me he had run a background check on my fiancé, that he'd found out everything. The charges, the prison sentence, his past. I tried to explain. I told him I already knew, that my fiancé had been honest with me from the beginning, that he wasn't hiding anything. But my dad didn't care. To him, none of that mattered. All he saw was one word: criminal. He kept repeating it over and over, like if he said it enough times, it would erase everything else about him.
"He's dangerous," my dad said. "You do not build a life with someone like that."
My hands were shaking by that point, not from fear, but from anger, because he didn't know him. He didn't see the man I saw. He didn't see the effort, the change, the years spent trying to become better. All he saw was a past that couldn't be undone. I tried again. I told him my fiancé had never made me feel unsafe, that he had changed, that people deserve second chances. But my dad cut me off.
"If you marry him," he said, his voice firm and final, "we won't be there, and we won't support you."
The words hung in the air like something heavy, suffocating. It wasn't just disapproval, it was an ultimatum. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I didn't even recognize my own voice when I answered him. It was steady. Too steady. The sort of calm that only shows up when something inside you has already made a decision. Then don't come. There was silence on the other end of the line. Not the kind where someone is thinking about what to say next. The kind where something irreversible has just been said, and both people know there's no taking it back. I could hear my dad breathing. Slow. Controlled. Like he was trying not to lose his temper. "Are you really choosing him over your family?" he asked. That question hit harder than anything else he'd said, because it wasn't just a question. It was an accusation. And for a split second, I hesitated. Not because I doubted my fiancé. Not because I suddenly believed my dad was right. But because I realized what this choice actually meant. This wasn't just about a wedding. This wasn't just about approval. This was about losing them, the people who raised me, who were there for every birthday, every milestone, every version of me before I even knew who I was. My throat tightened, my chest felt heavy, and for a moment I was a little girl again, wanting her parents to be proud of her. But then I thought about him, about the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention, about the quiet way he tried to be better every single day, about how he told me the truth, even when it could have cost him everything. And I realized something that made the decision clear. "I'm choosing my future," I said. I don't think he expected that, because the next thing I heard wasn't anger. It was disappointment, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting ever could.
"You're making a mistake," he said quietly.
And then the call ended. I sat there for a long time after that, my phone still in my hand, the screen dark, my reflection staring back at me like I was looking at someone else. My heart was pounding, but everything else felt numb. I knew what I had to do, so I blocked his number. My hands shook when I did it. Not because I didn't mean it, but because I knew exactly what it meant. That simple action, that one tap, it wasn't just blocking a phone number. It was cutting off a part of my life. And I told myself I was okay with that. I had to be. But it didn't stop there. The calls started the next day. At first, It was my mum. Her name lit up my phone, and for a second my finger hovered over the screen. I could almost hear her voice in my head, soft and worried, asking me to reconsider, asking me to just think about it one more time. I didn't answer. Then came my aunt, then my cousin, then people I hadn't even spoken to in months. Each call carried the same message. Your parents are worried. You're being impulsive. You don't understand what sort of person he is. Some were gentle. Some were judgmental. Some didn't even try to hide their opinions. But all of them had one thing in common. None of them actually knew him. And that's what made it so frustrating. They weren't reacting to the man I loved. They were reacting to a version of him that only existed in his past. A version he had already left behind. I started ignoring the calls, then the messages. Eventually, I just stopped checking altogether. But even in the silence, I could feel it. The pressure. The weight of being the one who's wrong. The one who was throwing everything away. And late at night, when everything was quiet, those voices would creep in. What if they're right? What if I'm blind? What if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life? Those thoughts didn't stay long, but they showed up, and I hated that they did, because I didn't want to doubt him. I didn't want to doubt us. A few days later, I finally told my fiancé everything. We were sitting in the living room. The telly was on, but neither of us was watching. I think he could already tell something was off. I'd been quieter than usual, more distant. I took a deep breath and just told him everything. My dad's call, the ultimatum, the fact that I'd blocked him, the calls from my family. I watched his face as I spoke, the way his expression slowly shifted, not into anger, not into defensiveness, but into something that hurt even more. Guilt. "I'm sorry," he said. Those two words hit me like a punch to the chest, because this wasn't his fault. And yet, he was the one apologizing. "I didn't think it would be like this," he continued. "I knew it might be hard, but not like this." He looked down at his hands, rubbing them together like he didn't know what to do with them. "I don't want to be the reason you lose your family." That's when something inside me broke, because I could hear it in his voice. That quiet fear, that belief that maybe he wasn't worth the cost. I moved closer to him, taking his hands in mine. "You're not," I said firmly. "This is not your fault." He didn't look convinced. "I've already lost enough because of my past," he said quietly. "I don't want you to lose everything too." I felt my throat tighten again, because I understood what he meant. He had already paid for his mistakes, more than most people ever would. 6 years of his life, his mother's death, the constant judgment, the labels that never fully go away. And now, this. I squeezed his hands tighter. "I'm not losing everything," I said. "I'm choosing what matters." He looked up at me then, searching my face like he was trying to see whether I really meant it. "I love you," I said. Simple words, but in that moment, they carried everything. The decision, the sacrifice, the certainty. And for the first time since all of this started, I saw something shift in his eyes. Not guilt, not fear, but something softer. Hope. He pulled me into a hug, holding me tighter than usual. Like he was afraid if he let go, everything might fall apart again. And for a moment, everything felt okay. Like maybe love really was enough. But that night, after he fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet, but my mind wasn't. I kept replaying everything. My dad's voice. "You're making a mistake." And I wondered, not whether I loved him, because I did, but whether love alone could carry the weight of everything we were about to face. The next few days felt unreal, like I was living inside a version of my life that I didn't fully recognize anymore. Everything looked the same on the outside, same flat, same routine, same people. But underneath it all, something had shifted, something permanent. In the silence from my parents, it wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. The kind of silence that presses on your chest when you least expect it. I'd be doing something ordinary, making tea, folding laundry, walking down the high street, and suddenly it would hit me. They're really gone. Not physically, not completely, but in the way that mattered. They weren't part of my life anymore. And that realization didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, like a shadow stretching across the floor, until you look down and realize you're already standing in the dark. I tried to distract myself. Wedding planning helped at first. It gave me something to focus on, something that felt like movement instead of this strange emotional limbo. We talked about venues, dates, guest lists. I even caught myself smiling a few times, imagining what the day might look like. But every time the topic of family came up, there was this pause, this gap, like something was missing that couldn't be filled. "Do you want to invite your parents?" he asked one evening, carefully, like he already knew the answer but still hoped it might be different. I hesitated, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I didn't want to say it out loud. "No," I finally said. The word felt heavier than it should have, and the look in his eyes, it wasn't relief, it was sadness. "I can talk to them if you want," he offered. "Maybe if they hear it from me." "No," I cut him off, maybe a little too quickly. I softened my tone. "It won't change anything," because deep down, I knew it wouldn't. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't something that could be smoothed over with a conversation. This was a belief, a line my father had drawn so clearly that crossing it meant losing him, and I had already crossed it. Weeks passed. The calls from extended family slowed down, then stopped. The messages became less frequent, then disappeared entirely. It was like the storm had burned itself out, leaving behind this quiet, uneasy stillness. And in that stillness, doubt had more room to breathe. I didn't talk about it much, not with him, not with my friends, because every time I even thought about bringing it up, I felt this strange mix of guilt and defensiveness, like if I admitted how much it hurt, it would somehow make it seem like I regretted my choice, and I didn't. At least, I didn't think I did. But late at night, when everything was quiet and there was nothing to distract me, my mind would wander back to the same place. Memories. My mum in the kitchen, calling me over to taste something she was cooking. My dad teaching me how to ride a bike, running behind me until I finally found my balance. Family dinners, Christmases, small moments that didn't seem important at the time, but now felt like pieces of a life I had walked away from. I missed them. That was the truth I didn't want to say out loud. I missed them, even after everything. And that made everything more complicated. Because how do you miss people who don't accept your life? How do you love people who are willing to cut you off because of someone you love? I didn't have answers. I still don't. One night, it all came to a head. We were sitting at the table, eating dinner. It was quiet, not awkward, just calm. But I think he could feel something building inside me. He set his fork down and looked at me. "You've been thinking a lot," he said. It wasn't a question. I tried to brush it off. "Just tired." But he didn't buy it. "You can talk to me," he said gently, and something about the way he said that, it broke through whatever wall I'd been holding up. "I miss them," I admitted. The words came out before I could stop them. I looked down at my plate, suddenly unable to meet his eyes.
I know they're wrong, I continued, my voice quieter now. I know they don't understand, but they're still my parents.
The silence that followed felt different, not tense, just real. When I finally looked up, he wasn't upset. He wasn't hurt. He just looked understanding.
Of course you miss them, he said softly. That doesn't mean you made the wrong choice.
But it didn't feel that simple. What if it does? I asked. The question hung between us because I didn't mean it as a challenge. I meant it as a fear. What if years from now, I look back on this moment and realize I lost something I could never get back? What if this is the point where everything changed? And not in a good way. He leaned back slightly, thinking.
I can't promise you this will be easy, he said, or that things won't hurt for a while.
That honesty, it mattered, because he wasn't trying to give me a perfect answer. He was just being real. But I can promise you this, he continued.
I will spend every day proving to you that you didn't make a mistake choosing me.
My chest tightened again, not in a painful way, in a way that made me feel seen, safe, and yet still uncertain. Because the truth is, love doesn't erase consequences. It doesn't magically fix broken relationships or undo hard choices. It just gives you something worth holding on to while you deal with them. And that's where I am now, caught between two truths. I love him and I miss them. Both exist at the same time. Both are real. We're still planning the wedding, still moving forward, still building a life together.
But there's a part of me that wonders if that empty space, where my family used to be, will always be there.
Or if one day it'll finally stop hurting. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm still trying to process all of this. What would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear more of my journey, make sure to subscribe.